engaging, educating, and empowering program planned for you today.
درود میگم به همه شما دوستان عزیزم. شادی امینی هستم. خیلی خوشحالم که امسال در برنامه جشن روز جهانی زن که توسط گروه ICWIN دایره ایرانیان اینجا برگزار میشه شرکت میکنم. فکر میکنم که روز جهانی زن روزی هستش که همه ما باید تلاش بکنیم تا در رابطه با آزادی و برابری همدیگر رو آگاه کنیم، آگاه تر کنیم، حقوق خودمون رو به همدیگه یادآوری کنیم، گوشزد بکنیم و در کنار هم باشیم، کنار هم بودن رو تمرین بکنیم و کمک کردن و حمایت رو تمرین بکنیم و به آگاهی و رشد همدیگه کمک بکنیم، پله‌ای باشیم برای همدیگه، برای رشد هم و فرقی نداره زن و مرد. همین که ما باور داشته باشیم به برابری، به آزادی، میتونیم کنار هم همدیگر رو سپورت بکنیم و جهان رو به جهان بهتری برای هم تبدیل بکنیم. جهانی که کسی احتیاج نداشته باشه برای حقوق اولیش بجنگه، مبارزه بکنه و هزینه بده. ما الان میجنگیم، مبارزه میکنیم، هزینه میدیم، ولی به امید روزی که مجبور نباشیم هزینه بدیم برای حقوق اولیه‌مون. ممنونم.
سلام، من هانیه محمد باقر هستم، مسئول برگزاری نمایشگاه نقاشی ICWIN دایره فرهنگی زنان، بنیاد فرهنگی زنان در لس آنجلس و اورنج کانتی. توی این نمایشگاه ما 10 تا آرتیست داریم که میتونم به جرئت بگم از بهترین آرتیست های ایرانی هستن که توی داخل ایران و خارج از کشور هستن. یه تعدادیشون 26 تا اثر داریم از 10 تا آرتیست که نشونتون خواهیم داد آرتا رو و این آرتیستا 9 تاشون خانم هستن و یکیشون آقا هستن. تمام کارها هم مدرن هستن، هم کارهای سنتی داریم. خواستیم که تمام هنر ایران رو نشون بدیم، هم تو زمینه هنرهای سنتی و هم تو زمینه هنر مدرن. توی نمایشگاه میتونید هر دو کار رو مشاهده کنید و کارها معمولاً مربوط به دفاع از حقوق زنان هستش.
ICWIN has been a great partner for the past 3 years of Women's March Los Angeles Foundation, and they have participated immensely and greatly in every single one of our marches. We're very happy about this involvement, and we hope to grow it to a level where we can all share the same table.
این 3 تا کارهای من هستش. این کار یه دختر ایرانیه که در شهرستان‌های ایران زندگی میکنه و به خاطر نوع حجابی که داره انتخابش کردم این کار رو و کارش اویل پینتینگ رنگ روغن روی بوم هستش. این کار سیاه و سفید روی بوم هستش و در واقع یه جوری سمبل آزادیه. هدفم نشون دادن آزادی بوده که هممون نداریمش و گاهی اوقات پر و بالمون بسته است به خاطر نداشتن آزادی. و اینه که کار نشون میده که حتی توی زندان هم نمیتونن اندیشه رو نگه دارن و اگر کسی توی زندان هست میتونه اندیشش رو به بیرون حتما منعکس کنه و هیچ وقت نمیتونیم اندیشه رو تو زندان نگه داریم.
thank you so much, Narges, for being here. Thank you, Aziza. My name is Bita Milanian, and I have the privilege of being your MC here to help coordinate this wonderful program that all the volunteers here at the organization has put together. So before anything, let's give a round of applause to all the volunteers who have put this program together. Across the globe, 2018 was recognized as the Year of Women. Women continue to claim their time by being more present, more vocal, brave, and bold for change. In 2019, women across the globe continue to strive for equality and justice for all. Hence, the theme of this program today is Think Equal, Foster Change. What a beautiful topic. Thank you so much for coming up with this creative yet to the point theme for today. We're also commemorating 40 years of resistance of Iranian women in Iran and in diaspora, many of them represented here. So round of applause for all of those women who are working hard and fighting for justice. In 2018, we saw many women succeeding in our community across the globe, but specifically four Iranian women made history as follows. Anna V. Eskamani, Florida State House; Anna Kaplan, New York State Senate; Zahraii, Georgia State Senate; and Sam Hamedani, Wake County District Court Judge. I mean, come on. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I followed all of that real time, as I'm sure many of you did, and it just was so joyful and so rewarding and so inspirational to watch these women win one after another and be able to share that news with everybody. So with that, we are delighted that we have the good fortune to have two of the young, brave Iranian women who have stepped out the plate and representing us very well in the global community and specifically here in the United States. The two young women are twin sisters, Anna and Aida V. Eskamani. Yes, they're beautiful twins. The Honorable Anna V. Eskamani is the first Iranian to become an assemblywoman in state of Florida, Sunshine State. Yes. There they are. Hi, ladies. I'm not sure if you can see me, but I'm here. Prior to that, Anna served as the Senior Director of Public Affairs and Communications for Planned Parenthood of Southwest and Central Florida. She's known across the nation as an advocate for women's health and equality. Please welcome the Honorable Anna V. Eskamani.
Hello.
Together with Anna June, we have Aida V. Eskamani, who played a key role in her twin sister's successful campaign. She currently facilitates statewide and local public policy efforts for several progressive organizations in Florida, including Organized Florida, New Florida Majority and Florida Immigrant Coalition, and she previously has served as Chief of Staff to Florida House Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith. Welcome. Technology, because it solves so many problems. I have a tech background, so I love this happening here because, things happen in life. So due to Anna's schedule at Florida Assembly and considering flight delays due to unusual weather pattern, it was determined that traveling to lovely California, who also has now unpredictable weather these days, it was best that we did this virtually. So it feels like you're here, so welcome. And my dear friend, Sudi June Faroukhia, she's going to moderate this special, yes, round of applause, Sudi, who's been working nonstop, but I don't think she has had much sleep organizing this, who herself was recently appointed delegate to the California State Democratic Party. Please help me welcome Sudi June to moderate this lovely conversation.
Hi, everyone. It's so exciting to be here.
So today, since unfortunately we could not have these lovely sisters present here, so you couldn't hug them, you couldn't take pictures with them, we thought that you should have the opportunity to at least we get engaged with them. So after I ask some questions, moderated question, you will have an opportunity to also ask some questions from the audience. All right, let's go. All right, so Anna June, first of all, I want to congratulate you for writing your first bill, and I think it passed.
It did, yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Wonderful. You're on the right track. So your bio indicates that you have held prestigious and strategic positions. Can you tell our audience why did you get involved in these organizations? And as importantly, how did you find your way in that sphere?
That's a fantastic question. And thank you again, Sudi, June, and everyone for inviting us to join you through Skype. Our foundation is very much grounded in Iranian women. I think many people know that our mom passed away to cancer when we were 13 years old. Our parents came from two different parts of Iran, but they met in Florida, and we were working class. So our parents worked hard their entire lives, sacrificing for us to be able to, go to college and really advocate for families like ours. And so my passion for women's issues in particular was very much grounded in losing our mom at a young age, because when we lost our mom, I actually started reading literature by Iranian women for Iranian women to get a better understanding of our struggles, but not just our struggles, but of the power and strength of Iranian women. And that inspired me every day to want to do more to support women and girls here in the United States and abroad. And that was really my beginning, to identifying feminism and really understanding the issues that impact women and girls each and every day.
Yeah. What about you? How did you get involved?
It's similar. Anna and I both got involved. Our first kind of activism ever was actually regarding Iran and human rights. We were both at the University of Central Florida in Orlando, and it was around when the Green Revolution was happening. And so
2009.
Her and I launched a petition campaign. It was all about student solidarity, about American students standing in solidarity with Iranian students, because we know so much of the movement in Iran has often been rooted in young people and young women. And so that's really how we kind of first got engage in activism, kind of cut our teeth in this work. And so we both wrote undergraduate theses around Iran.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Our parents raised us with so much pride in our people, and also they never shied away from sharing their struggle and our people's struggle. And so for Anna and I, it's always been very much ingrained in the work that we do. And for us, our parents sacrificed everything to allow us to live the American dream. And so we have sort of manifested that into doing whatever we can to help marginalized people. So much is rooted in just, our being a strong Persian woman and knowing that we run the show, right? So we have more of that.
And I'll add to that too, in 2009, when you saw the Green Movement happen in Iran, Ida and I were president and vice president of the Iranian student organization at our university. And it was very much a cultural organization, and we embraced that, but also made it a human rights organization. And we wore our green wristbands every day. And like Ida said, we collected petitions at UCF to have our American friends show up for the Iranian community and show solidarity with the struggles happening in Iran. And that was so foundational for us. And we matched our academics with our activism. So both Ida and I, we have masters. I'm getting my doctorate now. And so we continue to see, the history of our people and how that motivates us to be brave. Because especially for Iranian women, so much has been sacrificed to earn a more equal standing in society, and yet we're still so far from achieving that. And we feel that same struggle here in the United States as well.
Very well said. And so that actually leads me, I'm going to jump because I was going to ask this question later, but one thing that really stood out in your campaign, Anna June, was the fact that you not only did not hide your Iranian heritage, you put it out there in volumes, and I remember my mom came and told me, I've noticed she has a Farah Bahar on in every picture. So that was kudos to you. So tell us, strategically, I'm sure you had campaign managers and all that. How was that decision made to express all of you, all that is within you and represents you?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So our campaign, we actually push back against traditional consultants and managers, because to your point, many people would tell us not to do that. They would tell us, don't let people know you're Iranian. And in a state like Florida, most people automatically assume that we might be Latina. Iran is not a major demographic in Florida. Growing up, we were usually the only Iranians in our school. So if I had listened to consultants and managers, they would have told me to actually hide from it, to not tell my story, and to pretend to be, something more comfortable, I think, for everyday people. And our district too, District 47 is actually 85% white. And so this is a community that, is very, it's not, people come from immigrant backgrounds, but it's a very well-established, like, American community. But it's also my hometown. And I've always been very proud of my Iranian identity, in large part because of our mom really teaching us the cultures. We celebrate Nowruz every year. We jump over fire every year. And we really are proud of that. And I didn't want to run for office if I couldn't be myself. I didn't want people to support me not knowing who I really am. And my Fahar, not only is it culturally very important to me, but this is my mom's. And when she got really sick, I put it on and told myself I wouldn't take it off until she got better. But since she never got better, I just never took it off. So I've been wearing this necklace for, at this point, 17, 18 years. So it's a part of me. I refuse to take it off, no matter, who gives me that type of advice. And at the same time, I think my cultural identity, it's the foundation for my values. Good deeds, good thoughts, and good words are an incredible foundation to be a public official. And even our campaign logo, if anyone's ever seen it, our campaign logo is my name with a V, and the V is our mom's maiden name, Moshtaghi, and then the 3 stripes are good deeds, good thoughts, and good words. So I even wanted to be a part of our story in the sense of the logo that everyone sees, the logo that everyone puts in their front yard on a yard sign, because if we're a nation of immigrants, then our immigrant story should matter, and we should be honest and open about it. And I have to tell you, it was really incredible because we were so open about our identity. There were so many people who would come to me and say, oh, I went to school with an Iranian, or my first boss was Iranian, and my roommate was Iranian. And you started really getting, a sense of connectivity. People were proud to say they knew an Iranian because they wanted to support us. And that's transformational. That's reprogramming people's perceptions of Iran, and that was a part of our mission as well. And one last thought too: that the number of young brown girls who were so proud and inspired by us. I mean, girls of every background, but it's specifically girls that look like us. They were really, really excited and proud. And even when I go to any environment, I get recognized a lot, especially in Central Florida. But it's so funny how, on campus environments, it's the Iranians, it's the Indian Americans, it's the girls who look like us, Pakistani, who see us and are inspired by us, and they want to run for office themselves. So, if someone like me, a working class daughter of immigrants, with an Iranian last name, if someone like me can win a race, a competitive race, my hope is that it inspires others to not only run for office, but to run as themselves and to inspire people to join them in action.
Yeah. About it. My sister is the first ever Iranian American elected to any office in Florida.
Yes, she is. And you played a big role in that. I know you were on the back scene, but you played a big role. And I even told Anna, I said, you're the elected official, but it's harder to get in touch with Ida than it is to get in touch with you.
It's true.
So we know Anna keeps you busy.
Well, and Ida,
team effort.
Ida and I, were both cut from the same cloth. And Ida was actually the one who started the GoFundMe campaign for Pulse nightclub and raised over $9 million for Pulse survivors and the victims' families. And so, we've both been involved in this work for a long time, and we care deeply about people. And I think that's, again, grounded in our lived experiences, knowing what it feels like to be judged because of the color of our skin or, because of our name.
But I also think in like Persian culture, we are so giving, right? You can't go to someone's house without leaving with, bags and bags of food for the rest of the week. And, we give our heart and our soul and everything we have to our neighbors, to our family, to our friends. And so for Anna and I, we apply that same mentality to this work. We want to serve people. And I always think back to this is all I know is how to help and support and serve people. And it's so much of how we were raised and just in our culture, like that giving nature is in our culture.
That's very sweet. So most Iranian Americans migrated to U.S. after the revolution and really try to stay under the radar. And I'm so happy that your parents did not institute that in you. And they also would tell us, there was this memo that we all got that, politics is evil, stay away from it, Apparently none of us really listened, So that's a good thing.
Very good thing.
Exactly. So did you ladies grow up hearing about Iranian women's struggles and achievements? I know you culturally got a lot of lessons from your parents, but were you following, the whole struggle, the compulsory hijab, the struggles that the Iranian women's movement has had, not just in the 40 years from, at least the last decade, that they've been liberated and they've been looking for the equal rights. What can you tell us that kind of stood out for you?
Yeah, our mom never hid from us the struggle of Iran and of Iranian women. So she would tell us that moment where, she had to wear hijab. She would talk about how, Iran is such a rich, beautiful history, but that history was often stifled by the regime and things like that. And so we were nothing was ever sugarcoated for us growing up. Our mom always spoke so much about the struggle of Iran and her own personal struggles, and also just growing up working class in America, the struggles of that. And our dad sometimes would tell us, trying to protect us, he would say, don't tell people you're Iranian. Tell them you're Indian. Tell them you're Pakistani. Because he was scared of us getting bullied or getting picked on or something like that. And our mom would always come in and say, no, you are Persian. You need to tell everybody you are Persian. And she would actually come to our school and teach our classmates about Persian culture.
Bring Goma Sabzi.
Yes.
PR.
So much of why we are here and who we are is because we had such a amazing, strong woman mentor in our mom, but also her mom. Our mommy John is incredible. She raised 5 kids, 4 girls, 1 boy, and so we come from a long line of really strong women. But I think when you look at Persian culture, that's no surprise, right? So I think for us, we were always just taught, things were kept real for us. We knew what the struggle was. We watched news all the time. We listened to NPR. We kind of kept updated. And then it just became really natural for us when we got to college to really start getting engaged in activism. Even before then, Anna ran our friend's class president campaign in elementary school. And we were just always encouraged to follow our passions, whatever that looked like for us.
Well, and I'll add too, I remember our mom talking about how politics had really tarnished Iran. And she wanted to go back and see her sisters, and she never had a chance to because she felt that politically was too hard. I mean, it was also expensive for us, but she didn't want to put a headscarf on. She really felt that the Islamic Republic of Iran was hurting the country, and she would talk about that all the time, about just how oppressive it was. And I remember her writing letters to her sisters because it was too expensive for us to call all the time. But she really yearned to go back to Iran and felt like she couldn't. And actually, when she passed away, she hadn't seen her sisters in over a decade. And our first time in Iran was in 2005 to bring our mom's ashes to the Caspian Sea. And that was such a transformational experience for us, meeting our family for the first time, really connecting to our culture in such a meaningful way, but also developing that appreciation for the people of Iran, but also recognizing the struggle and recognizing the fear that so many Iranians live in, if they get political, if they speak out. I mean, we were encouraged, not to talk in the cab because the driver might hear us say something political and we might get in trouble. I mean, a lot of it's paranoia too, but understandably, because you just don't know in Iran. It's such a arbitrary system of justice that you don't know, what's going to happen to you. I dream to go back to Iran, but I know with the current political climate between our 2 governments and just, our presence as progressives, I know it becomes more challenging. But, you know, I'm a firm believer that my struggle is connected to your struggle, and none of us are free until we're all free. And it's one reason why I try really hard, even though I'm a Florida House representative, I can't make decisions on a federal level with international relations. I try really hard to teach my Republican colleagues in the Florida House and the Florida Senate who we are as Iranians and what drives us and where our values come from, with the hope that they could be supportive, you know, in building better relationships with the Iranian people and finding peace in Iran, versus what tends to be a very, you know, inaccurate portrayal of the Iranian people.
Very well said. And you just answered my next question, so I'm just going to skip it. So, Anna, you also mentioned about, you know, in your campaign also, you said that you're unapologetically progressive. Can you tell us what are your top 5 items on your agenda? Perhaps maybe you can talk about your first victorious bill that you wrote.
I love to. So just to give people more perspective, you know, the Florida legislature has a Florida House and a Florida Senate. And so I serve in the Florida House, District 47, and we're in downtown Orlando, Winter Park, and Belle Isle. So we're very much the heart of Florida, one of the most important parts of the state when it comes to elections for presidents. I mean, it's called the I-4 corridor, and it's one of the most important parts when it comes to determining national and statewide races. We campaigned, as you mentioned, as an unapologetic progressive, fighting for issues that impact working families. Some of our priorities have always included environmental protection. You know, Florida is a sunshine state. We have some of the best potential for renewable energy, yet we are decades behind compared to other states. Educational enhancement. We're both proud graduates of public school, and we want to make sure that our public schools are strong for next future generations and for their parents. So we're fighting to protect public education. On the front of healthcare access, I mean, our personal story of watching our mom have to navigate a really tough health insurance environment, struggling to pay bills and struggling to get the care she deserved, inspires us to fight for healthcare access for every Floridian. We have an expanded Medicaid in Florida, so that's a big conversation for us all the time. Florida ranks 48 out of 50 on mental health funding, so that's a big issue for us too. And then, of course, you mentioned in my bio that I worked at Planned Parenthood, and my Planned Parenthood story started as a patient. Because her mom had passed away, I went to Planned Parenthood when I was 18 years old to seek access to contraception, to find a method of birth control that was right for me. And I'm eternally grateful that Planned Parenthood was there for me. And I started volunteering at Planned Parenthood and worked there for 6 years, fighting for access to reproductive health. And that's always one of my passions, and it's another one of my connections to women's issues. We also care deeply about gun violence. Pulse nightclub is in my district. And for those who might not remember, Pulse nightclub was the place where 49 people were killed by a gunman, and it's scarred our community. It was primarily the LGBTQ plus community that was damaged by this act of mass murder. And so we feel really unapologetic about banning assault weapons, high capacity magazines, and one of the bills that I did file would keep firearms out of the hands of domestic violence abusers, because time and time again we see a connection between domestic violence and gun violence. And I want to make sure that those who have a conviction of domestic violence cannot have access to a firearm. And then finally, really looking at a better economic structure. Florida is a very service industry state. We're very much driven by minimum wage workers. It's tough to survive in Florida if you're a working class. Rent. To give you perspective, the rent in Orlando is actually comparable to the rent in Los Angeles. And I know the rent is high in Los Angeles, but Orlando shouldn't be like that. We don't have the same quality of life or the same income levels. It's really hard for Floridians to afford housing. And so we're looking at solutions to really ensure that Floridians can have a roof over their head and that you can reach your fullest potential by having a place to call home. So we campaigned on all those issues and more. And, coming to the Florida legislature as a progressive is tough because not only is it still majority white men who represent the state of Florida, but it's majority Republican, both in the House and the Senate and in the governor. So you have to get really creative when it comes to pushing forward your vision for the world, and at the same time, build relationships. And again, I'm really humbled by the fact that both Ida and I have many Republican friends. We're very authentic and genuine when it comes to building relationships. And even later this month, we're hosting a Nowruz party in the Florida Capitol.
Bravo.
First ever. The first ever Nowruz party in the Florida Capitol. And we're inviting every member of the Florida legislature. And I've gotten really great feedback from Republicans who, once they saw the note about jumping over fire, were very excited about that idea. So, we want to do our part to build relationships. And, you brought up the bill that I just passed. So, as a member of the Florida House, we sponsor policy bills, and we also sponsor funding requests. And I've been doing work in a low-income community called Biflo for about 5 years now. We grew up near that community, and have many childhood friends who grew up in this part of Florida. And so we're trying to open a federally qualified health clinic in the area. And so my request was for a funding allocation, and it was approved unanimously, by this committee that is made up of majority Republicans. So it was a good first step for us, and we'll continue to keep pushing forward on all the issues that matter to us, alongside building meaningful relationships so we can keep fighting for the values that define us as young progressives.
Very well. So my next question is for Ida June. And since you already mentioned that rent is pretty much like Los Angeles, any chance either one of you want to move to California? Because not that Florida doesn't need you and they haven't served you well, but I have to tell you, I'm just gonna, we missed out for you being present here, and I gotta tell you, you missed out for being here because we got some hardcore Democrats in this hall right now. We have several new appointed or elected delegates to the Democratic Party here. Myself, one of them. Kimia Mohebi is another one. Michael Saul is here. Where's my Emma? Emma Jensen is here. And then we also have the chair of the Democratic Party of Orange County, Ada Bresciano here. And we got Michael Shinwright, who started the Indivisible OC45.
That's amazing.
And I'm sure many others, but I can, these are the folks that, they're my new peeps,
And y'all can come help save Florida. We need more Democrats here.
Yeah, maybe we should travel back and forth,
See it in jaw.
Yeah, exactly. So, Ida June, you've had intense campaign experience. I want to know what's next for you. Any chance you are considering to run for office?
I get that question a lot. I think right now the funny thing is I'm currently in public policy, so I'm actually a lobbyist for several progressive organizations in Florida. And so I'm currently working on immigration issues. Unfortunately, the immigrant community is again under attack here in the Florida legislature. And so we are working nonstop to try to stop these really dangerous anti-immigrant bills from passing. I'm also working on criminal justice reform here in Florida. We're looking at doing something similar to the federal First Step Act on criminal justice reform, except here in Florida, calling it the Florida First Step Act. I'm also working with my sister and other lawmakers on issues around affordable housing as well, and also really, really engaged in a long list of progressive issues. And so
answer the question.
I like it. Anna is older. I know she's 7 minutes older than you. So.
What's funny is right now, when we both walk in Tallahassee, the amount of people who call me representative, yes. And I try to correct them, but sometimes I'm in such a rush that I just text her and I say, hey, just so you know, so-and-so saw you and, said hi, they're going to step by your office. Like, I feel like
Yeah, people call her representative all the time, and I tell her just to go with it.
But you know, for me, I see all of us operating in this ecosystem, and so good lawmakers need good advocates to give them the right information, right, to help draft legislation, to make sure they're connected to the people on the ground, because some of the affordable housing stuff that Anna is doing was literally written by renters, people who can't afford rent. It wasn't just an idea that, you know, some think tank came up with or that Anna thought of, which is all still good and important. But more and more of the work we do, we have to empower people who actually live these experiences to write these laws and put their ideas forward. And so my current role, in many ways, I'm a conduit of that. I'm that connector between the community and the lawmaker. And we definitely need more people like that. So I'm currently really grateful for the role that I can play. But if I never say never, but I'm currently focused on this session and doing everything I can to help people. And if there's a role that would help me help more people, I would certainly consider it. But for me, it's about that ecosystem and all of us doing as much as we can to help marginalized people have their voices heard.
I completely understand that. And thank you for that and that suggestion to everyone. I have one more question for you, but I want to know if our volunteers have gathered any questions, if you can deliver them here, and I can start taking those questions. But the one question is, of course, we had the pink wave in 2018, highest number of women to be elected at state and federal level. And this is particularly important to us because us here at ICWIN, we are always, our slogan is embrace diversity and be bold for change. So what is your recommendation or suggestion for our audience? Why should they care and get involved?
That's a great question, Azizam. I mean, it's one reason why I ran for office in the first place. You know, I watched so both Ida and I have been in advocacy for about 10 years. You know, we've been behind the scenes, we've been empowering the community. And I was pretty content, like where I was. I worked at Planned Parenthood. I had a staff of 6 across 22 counties, managing 11 health centers, going to Tallahassee, not full time, but going to Tallahassee when necessary. You know, I was saving to buy a house. Like I was doing all the things that a 28-year-old would be doing. And then President Trump won. And that changed everything for me. And I looked around my community and I realized that if we really want to have a representative democracy, it was going to take more people like us to build that. And we needed to run for office. But again, even for me, someone who has all this experience and, you know, was well suited to run for office, I didn't see myself as that person. I actually started asking all my girlfriends to do it instead. So one by one, I was like, you should run for office. You should run for office. I'll help you. I didn't see myself, you know, in that role. And one by one, it was other women who would look to me and say, well, why aren't you going to do it? You know, why aren't you thinking about it? And that's what inspired me to start seeing myself as someone who could be that representative, you know, be that reflection of a diverse and transformational democracy, one that listens to people and one that is held accountable by the people. And that's what pushed me to run for office. And so my advice to everyone is that you're needed right now. You know, we can't have a representative democracy unless you're a part of the process. And it doesn't mean you have to run for office, though I encourage folks to think about that and to pursue it. But, you know, you have people in the room who are involved in a local Democratic Party, people who serve on nonprofit boards, people who donate, people who volunteer. You know, every way you give is transformational, and it moves us away from what we often call transactional politics, which is very much the notion of I do this for you if you do this for me. It moves away from that to a place that's more transformational, where we're giving with that expectation with the goal of inspiring you to join us in social change. And that's not going to happen unless it comes from the ground up, unless it comes from everyday people getting involved, getting to know their elected officials, and exercising their power. And I think that as Iranian Americans, we have a lot of power, but we don't always come together, you know, around these issues. And even our campaign, you know, we raised $523,000. We raised more than $500,000 on our campaign for a state house race. We raised that from 4,000 individual donations. I took not one penny from fossil fuel companies or big sugar or pharmaceutical companies. We ran a really strong grassroots campaign. but majority of our donors were not Iranians. And so part of me thinks too, looking to the future of what can we do as now Iranian elected officials to really build our political efficacy as a community, to rally around issues that impact us, whether it's the travel ban, whether it's issues around visas right now. You know, what can we do as a community to come together and to build power around issues that matter to us? And I'm really hopeful that, you know, in my new position, not only can I fight for Florida in every way possible, but help bring Iranians together to push for an agenda that we can all unite around, one that supports Iranian Americans here and Iranians who wish to come to the United States, and for even our families that are still in Iran.
Wonderful. Aida, do you would like to add anything to that?
I think what I would say is that we need more women involved. You know, men have been in charge for a while, and there's a lot wrong. There's a lot going on, guys, and you need some women to come in and help fix it, really to do all the work, because that's kind of what we do. So, so we need women to run. You know, we need that. We need to shake things up. And so if you are considering running or getting involved in advocacy, you know, now is the time. You know, it should have happened yesterday, right? So just get involved, be fearless, be bold, and if there's anything that we can do to help support you, we're happy to do that.
Wonderful. So we got some tough questions for you. Ready?
Ready.
Ready. Okay. What is your answer to the following question? Where are you from? American, Iranian, American with Iranian heritage, Iranian American?
That's a great question. I usually identify as Iranian American, but I'll tell people that I was, you know, I'm the daughter of immigrants born in Orlando, but I usually define myself as Iranian American.
Yeah, I'll say Iranian American too. Sometimes I say Persian, I go back and forth. But I really enjoy saying Iranian American because I think it's really important that we remind people that Iran is our country. And yes, Iran could be a controversial place. There's a lot of misinformation about the Iranian people because of the ugly rhetoric that we see. So for me, it's really important that I'm very explicit about where we're from and this country to help redefine it to people. And also when people say Iranian, you know, I correct them on that too. So I usually say Iranian American.
Yeah, and really help paint the picture that, like, because I think when most people hear Iran, they're thinking about the Ayatollah. They're thinking about, you know, burning American flags. Like they have this perception of what they watch in the news. And so for us to say we're Iranian American, it pauses them and helps them reevaluate like the stigma that they've associated with our community. And so I just point, like, I think there's a lot of power to that. If I told people that I was Persian, they might not put the connection to Iran. And I feel like it's my responsibility to, you know, help redefine what Iran looks like to everyday Americans.
Wonderful. So next question, I'm trying to move on so we can get through all these questions. So, do you believe the energy of women, immigrants, and male allies can flip Florida in 2020?
Ooh.
I told you they're kind of good questions.
I love your question.
I think so, but here's the thing we also have to remember, and I think Anna's election really helped with this, is that we also need to work to talk to all working class people, regardless of where they're from. And in Anna's district, you know, again, it's majority white, and in some of her poorer neighborhoods, and traditionally more conservative neighborhoods, when I would go knock on doors in those communities, I had some of the best conversations because I would tell folks that, you know, our family were working poor, and our mom worked at Kmart for 15 years and struggled to make ends meet. And they would then start telling me their stories. And oftentimes it would be in the afternoon, folks would be getting home from work, you know, they'd be in like their uniform of like a fast food restaurant or what have you. And so we would connect on that. And it's true, like we know that struggle and they know it too. It's a very American story, regardless of where you're from, is that, you know, the rent is too high, that we have a minimum wage economy in Florida, and that folks are struggling. And so often immigrants are blamed for that. But when you have immigrants coming to white working class people and saying, like, I had that same struggle, this light clicks off, and all of a sudden you realize we are not the problem. It's actually this system, and it's these, corporate interests, these tax cuts, and that's the problem that we need to address. And so I think immigrant-led movements are absolutely key, but I also think we need to build bridges with old folks who struggle. And with that, we can really build some magic in Florida.
Well, and a part of it too, from our perspective, is 24/7 organizing. I mean, we knocked on 50,000 doors on our campaign. So it wasn't just that, I was an Iranian American running for office. I mean, we raised the money, we knocked on doors, we earned endorsements. Even we had more than 80 endorsements, including President Barack Obama. So we were really, really intentional about building an infrastructure that shines. And to Ida's point, we won. Our race was a swing seat. It's leaned slightly Democrat, and our opponent spent over $500,000. He did 25 pieces of negative mail, 3 negative TV ads. He even did a poll in the district that asked people if they would still vote for me if they knew that I was Iranian and connected to the Islamic Republic of Iran. It was insane. It was racist. It was everything you would imagine would happen. And it didn't work. But it didn't work because we were so aggressive about telling our story before someone else could tell it for us. And we knocked on Republican doors. We talked to everyone and did our best to build trust. And now, as a legislative office, we're not campaigning right now, but we continue to be very accessible. We have our interns actually call constituents just to say hi. And just to say, I'm your state house representative. We want to help. Let us know how we can help, because we have to rebuild trust in governments, and that will reflect during the campaign cycle too. But I know for Florida, we have a lot of work to do in building those meaningful relationships with our community so that they actually trust us again. And I think that's part of our mission as fresh faces to the work, is that we can redefine that for our own party.
Very nice. Very nice. So, Ida June, there's a question for you that says, can you expand on your fundraising efforts for the nightclub victims as a quote, second responder?
Yes, I can. So for about 3 or 4 years, I worked for Equality Florida, the state's LGBTQ civil rights organization. Before then, I was the fundraising director for Florida's first ever LGBTQ lawmaker, Representative Joe Saunders. And my most previous boss, he was also openly LGBTQ. And even though I'm not part of that community, it's one that's ingrained in the work that I do. And actually, I have after the Pulse shooting, I got a tattoo. We both actually got tattoos. I'm not sure if you can read it, but mine says Solidarity, on it says Orlando in rainbow. Because we really believe in collective liberation, and LGBTQ people are oppressed in so many ways, and they also reflect the diversity of all of our communities, right? And so I worked at Equality Florida when the Pulse shooting occurred. We live about 2 miles away from that nightclub, and the first text I got that morning was from my boss asking all of the Orlando staff members if we were okay. And then that quickly, thankfully none of us were there that night. We were all safe, but we immediately jumped into action because that's what we do. And so, I ran a lot of the direct victim services programming around that. And that included helping folks get connected with sort of all the in-kind services and goods that were available. That was also part of advocacy. So, advocating for undocumented folks who were impacted and their families, because Orlando is such an international community, and so many folks impacted were immigrants, their family were immigrants, they were undocumented, they were low-wage workers, and Spanish-speaking. So there were a lot of issues there as well. So I did a lot of international and national media around that too. And then I also launched a GoFundMe page called the Pulse Victims Fund, because we knew there were going to be severe financial needs for these folks, because again, the community they come from and the struggles they already face. And so we immediately launched a fundraising page, thinking we were just going to raise, $50,000, $100,000. And those were the original goals that we set up. But quickly this page garnered international momentum. And within just a few weeks, we raised $9.5 million from over 100,000 donors across the world.
Amazing.
From 120 countries. And those funds were dispersed directly to the people impacted. So that's the families of the victims, those are the survivors who experience physical injuries, as well as anyone who was in the nightclub that night, because we know even if you don't have physical injuries, you have mental injuries and challenges because of how traumatic the event was. And no amount of money will ever, solve that trauma and that experience, but it does help alleviate some of those immediate stressors, because folks have to be off of work, right? And thankfully, a lot of the medical bills we were able to advocate to have them paid for. But there's a long list of challenges that come up when you experience such a horrible crime. And for us, it was very important, again, that we don't tell people how to spend that money. Traditionally, in a lot of these events of mass murder, nonprofits will get the money and they disperse it in programming. But we were very, very intentional about advocating that the funds need to go directly to the people who are impacted, because they know what they need best. And so I'm really, fast forward now 2.5 years after that tragedy, Orlando still has a lot of healing to do. And a lot of the folks impacted are some of our closest friends and in our chosen family. And so it's been really beautiful for me to see those funds be put into use for folks to really live their dreams. So there was a restaurant open in honor of a loved one that a family lost. We've had some of our friends start new lives, right? New careers, new educational opportunities with those funds, and also folks just pay their bills and do things like that they couldn't do, and try to put their lives back together after that tragedy. So I'm really, for me, I feel like I was in that position to do that work, and I'm really just grateful I was there and I could help these folks in that way.
Well, you're both amazing and shining stars, and I'm sure we will really follow your leads as you light up this road. At such young age, you are just an inspiration. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I do want one question with just a yes, no, and whatever you respond to it, I'm going to put a ... behind it to be continued for our next chance that we talk. So here's the question. It won't be personal. Maybe.
We're both single, yes.
Yeah. Okay, since you offered. Okay, but that was not the question. The question was, do you consider yourself as a feminist?
Oh, yes. Yes. Dale.
Woohoo!
Lana actually,
all right.
in her office,
with that,
the definition of feminism in her office.
Yes. Although the definition can differ, but yes, I'm glad that you feel comfortable with that distinction. And so we enjoyed having you. You both are such delight, and we appreciate all of this time, the past few months that we've been working closely with each other to make today happen. And we look forward to having you in California. Please give us a tip if you decide that you can make it here. I know there's a group of people lined up that would love to meet you in person.
We'll be there soon. We always joke. And
I'm going to turn it into Bita Milanian, our wonderful MC, as she's going to be closing this session.
Thank you so much for making time to be with us. You guys are so inspirational. I followed your win minute by minute. I was posting, I was shouting out. So thank you for making time for being with us here today. And I just cannot get enough of chatting with you guys. So thank you, ICWIN, for making this possible. Have a great rest of the day in Florida. See you soon. So inspirational. Life is nothing without art within it. Don't you all agree? I mean, art of all forms. We started with music. I love dancing, for those of you who follow me, and visual arts are exceptional. So today, if you haven't had a chance to visit the beautiful, wonderful gallery that's been put up here, please do so. But all this great work that you see here has been curated by Mrs. Hanieh Mohammad Bagher, a talented artist herself. She presented her work 2 years ago at ICWIN's event and quickly was considered a sister within the circle. So thank you so much for being part of the group and your contributions. She has done a wonderful job reaching out to various artists who are presenting their work here today. All of their information is in this beautiful booklet that's been presented to you. So I wanted to take a moment and recognize all of them. So as I say their names, please join me on stage. Mustafa Khabas, Please come on stage. Shahla June Sepehre Bibi. She's our wonderful, dedicated photographer and talented photographer, and one of the steering committee members here at ICWIN. Shirin Daghouqi, درست گفتم؟ داغوقی. سوسن محمدی. سالومه میریان. هانیه جان، هانیه محمد باقر. فهیمه شمساپور. کاملیا شجاعی. Chloe Tishby, Nicole Tishby, sisters, duo. And we also have, yes, round of applause for all of their beautiful white outfits. I love it. We also have 2 art pieces that have been donated by Kathy Metz to one of our co-sponsoring organizations, Iranian Children's Rights Society, which was founded by Ms. Mahdouq Sanati. Proceeds will support educational aid to bright but less fortunate children. So please, please support all of these artists, wonderful artists who have put their time, and really I just scanned them quickly and they're all truly beautiful. So please buy every single one of them and support them. Thank you. خیلی ممنون. So as you may have noticed, I kind of jumped in, and as Sudi Jun mentioned, have the honor of being here with you guys and sharing the flow of this program with you. My beautiful sister, friend, talented artist Sheila Wusuq-Ommi, who was the original announced MC, was unfortunately called away on business, and Sheila and I went to the same high school. What are the odds? So we're actually we call ourselves Persian Wolves. I kind of started this reunion with all of our friends from that era of all the Iranians. So we're the Persian Wolves of Van Nuys High School. So Sheila and I share that as well as many other projects that we've done together. So she couldn't be here, but she has a message for us. So let's check it out.
Hello and happy International Women's Day to you all. I'm Sheila Wusuq-Ommi, and I'm truly saddened that I'm not able to be there with you in person to celebrate this special day as I had planned. But I'm in New York City, as you may hear in the background, and I'm working on a wonderful new project that's going to be great for immigrants and Iranians everywhere. I wanted to give a special welcome and thank you to my dear friend and hero of the day, Bita Milanian. Bita John, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, she's a wonderful dancer. You should ask her to dance for you later, and I'm sure that with her eloquence and elegance and gorgeous energy, you are all going to have a wonderful time today. As you all know, Iranian women have been striving for their independence and equality for decades. This effort is most vividly seen in their plight for the right to clothing, also known as freedom of expression, specifically seen in their consistent resistance against compulsory hijab. I'm so happy that I was able to add some English translation to a wonderful new video clip by Asu that was made earlier this year. That said, let us all review and acknowledge this vigorous and determined effort by Iranian women. Enjoy.
A 170 years of Iranian women's battle against compulsory hijab. In 1849, for the first time, Tahireh Qurratul Ain, one of the leaders of the Bab movement, took her face cover or rubande off in a public arena. Years later in 1907, during the Iranian Constitutional Revolution, intellectual and academic women started writing articles against the hijab. Many also took their veils off at private parties. In 1908, a group of unveiled women were gathered to support the Constitutional Revolution. Their slogan was, "Long live the Constitution, long live freedom. We want freedom from religion. We want to live in our own way." Constitutionalists didn't support them and labeled them as prostitutes who want to redirect the constitutional movement with their unreligious actions. In 1919, hundreds of women took shelter in a mosque in Tehran and declared that they would remain there until they got permission to take off their veils. Unfortunately, they were forced to leave the mosque wearing their veils. 1920, Sadiqeh Dolatabadi, editor-in-chief of Women's Voice magazine, received death threats for criticizing compulsory hijab for women. 1922, Women's Letter magazine, along with Shahnaz Azad, its editor-in-chief, was banned for publishing an article that conveyed the idea that hijab and other superstitious and traditional beliefs hold women and men back from advancement. Also in 1922, Fakhrafakh Parsa, editor-in-chief of Women's World magazine, was attacked by fanatics because of an article which suggested that women should remove their veils. She was later exiled. In 1924, Shahnaz Azad and her husband Abdul Qasem Azad funded the Association for Unveiling to promote the concept of not forcing women to wear a hijab, or at least to give them the freedom to choose to wear a hijab. This association was shut down in less than a year, and Abdul Qasem was imprisoned and later exiled. By 1925, numerous women had started wearing long and loose dresses instead of the customary hijab or chador in public. In 1929, in one of Iran's largest cities, Shiraz, 6 female teachers wore colorful veils to show their objection toward wearing hijab. They were assaulted by bigots and fanatics who threw stones and rocks at them. In 1931, Women's Universe Journal challenged the idea of wearing hijab by women and published opinions of people with opposing views on the matter. 1935, unveiling was imposed by Reza Shah Pahlavi as a governmental order for all women. Many female activists were against the hijab. However, they did not approve of unveiling as a mandatory order. In 1942, Reza Shah was overthrown, and so was his mandatory unveiling order. Women had a chance to choose to wear a hijab or not. And in the next administration, under Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, women finally gained the freedom to dress as they wished. In 1979, after the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Khomeini ordered that women must wear hijab in governmental offices. The edict came within 24 days of his taking position as supreme leader. Women who were against the compulsory hijab rallied for several days, and Khomeini's order was temporarily postponed. In 1981, Khomeini tried again, issuing another mandate that required women to observe hijab in governmental offices. Once again, women rallied, this time wearing black dresses in protest, calling it a day of mourning. Numerous women went to work dressed in black for days after. Many lost their jobs. September 5, 1981, the moral police began the systematic surveillance and inspection of women's hijab in public areas. The Islamic Congress passed a law that women must wear hijab in working environments or they would be punished. On February 24, 1994, Homa Darabi, a psychiatrist and member of the Iranian National Party, had a long lecture against compulsory hijab in Tehran. She took her veil off, burnt it, and set herself on fire as well. She passed away shortly after. Since 2015, many other campaigns have begun against compulsory hijab. 2016 saw the start of 2 campaigns, My Stealthy Freedom and White Wednesdays. Many women started posting photos and videos of themselves without a hijab in Iran on social media platforms to show their objection towards compulsory hijab. In December of 2017, Vida Movahed expressed her objection by standing on public benches and raised platforms while peacefully waving her veil on a stick. Dozens of other women have followed suit. These brave ladies were soon referred to as the Girls of the Revolution. Despite being harassed, arrested, and imprisoned, many Iranian women continue to fight for the freedom to dress how they choose, and they exhibit their objection to compulsory hijab by unveiling.
Watching this video reminds me why I left Iran, why my parents decided for us to leave Iran. My mother and her family were nationalists. They did not want to leave the country. On the other hand, my father's side, they had left many years prior. But the turning point was when I almost got arrested for my hijab, which wasn't even, my hair wasn't even showing, and I was only 13 years old. So watching this video not only reminds me how lucky I am to have the freedom that I have today to stand in front of you and be able to recognize the women who are fighting for justice and freedom and equality, but also, want to thank my mother again, who's not here, for making that decision to free me and to bring me to this, other part of the world so I can hopefully be a better member of society and be able to give back. So shout out to my mom and to all the mothers and all the fathers who have sacrificed their lives for us to be here 40 years. So as we promised, this event will be educational, just like this video we saw. I also mentioned that we're honoring 40 years of resistance of Iranian women. So with that, let's look at another video or two. The first one is 1979, Homa Natiq.
من و خانم جزنی بلند شدیم در دادگستری در اولین تظاهرات ما بودیم که سخنرانی کردیم. دیگه اولین تظاهرات زنان بود علیه نظام خمینی و واقعا داشت میلرزوند. بلند شدم رفتم توی سالن ورزشی دانشگاه، گفتم تظاهرات دیگه نکنیم. الان وقت تظاهرات نیست. یعنی چی؟ یعنی وحدت کلمه که خمینی میگه دیگه. و تظاهرات زنان من برهم زدن. همه آمدن گفتن خانم ناطق چرا این کار میکنی؟ این درست نخواهد شد. این سرکوب بیشتر من استدلال کردم بگه سازمان گفتم نه این درست نیست و فلان چیزا، با اینکه خودم ته دلم باور نداشت. این خیانت رو به زنان ایران من باعث شدم، بانی شدم در اون. رفته بودم اونجا، حیوانی‌ها اصلا شعار نداشتن بدن، برای اینکه همش منتظر این بودن که الان فدایی‌ها میان، الان مجاهدین میان، الان این نیروهای رزمنده میان، به اینها شعار میدن، اینا رو حمایت میکنن. هی این روسریاشون این بالای سرشون میچرخوندن به این امید که الان خلاصه از غیب برون آید و کاری بکند و اینا. هیچ کس نرفت، هیچ کس از این نیروها نرفتن. تو روزنامه کار زنان نوشتن که اینا همه طرفداران بختیار بودن که رفتن، اینا ضد انقلابی ان، اینا لیبرالن، حجاب در این جامعه مطرح نیست، مهم نیست. منم پا به پا که آقا مهم نیست، پتو سرمون میکنه اصلا خرابش آزاد، اصلا بدون اینکه فکر کنم که اون کسی که به من میگه چگونه بپوش همان خواهد بود که من میگه چگونه بیاندیش.
Thousands of women across Iran came together to celebrate International Women's Day in 1979. We were 4 French women who spent a week with Iranian women in their marches, sit-ins, and meetings. Many of us in Paris, Lyon, Bordeaux, and Marseille did as much as we could to introduce the movement of Iranian women to the world. We reflected the women's movement on a daily basis. We, members of the Movement for Liberation of Women in France, declare that when Iranian women come to the scene of movement, it indicates freedom and emancipation for women around the world. Chants of women are, I say it every moment, I say it under the torture, either death or freedom. Freedom is not Eastern nor Western, it is universal. Death to censorship. In the dawn of freedom, the place of women is empty. Revolution is meaningless without women's freedom. We do not want hijab. The police tried to disperse the crowd by firing bullets in the air.
Yesterday's demonstration was the nearest thing to an anti-Khomeini rally yet. The imposition of Islamic law here has started with an order to women to cover their heads in government offices. Many are furious. Only a minority in Tehran already follow the instruction. But the issue has provided an escape valve for many of the men here who for days have been spoiling for trouble. Led by a few Islamic zealots, several hundred men eventually attacked the protesters. Several of the women who stood their ground with considerable courage were stabbed as they chanted slogans for equal rights. Most of these men can be relied upon to have a gun at home, and if they can't persuade the women and other sectors who oppose extremist Islamic beliefs, then the danger is that they will bring their weapons out onto the street and that there will be bloodshed again. Moments later, guns actually did appear. The order was eventually restored by a mullah who expressed no sympathy for the women's position. Ayatollah Khomeini is determined to see an Islamic state at all costs. Resistance to it is already growing. With no impartial policing, the split in the revolution is already open and threatens to become wider and more dangerous. Jon Snow, ITN, Tehran.
The government raised the issue of hijab. We were part of this revolution. We studied and worked in the hospitals. We treated the wounded during the revolution. After the army surrendered and the revolution triumphed, we were in the streets. Then Khomeini said, enough of demonstration, you go back to your homes. We did that. Since Thursday, we came back to streets again. We do not want a job. If you wanted to impose hijab, you must have told us before. We had the revolution to have equal rights for women and men. Women in law were the first to react against the new action. We followed them. We want to fight back. We have to speak up right now for our rights. Otherwise, when they write the constitutional laws, it will be too late. First they impose the hijab, and then other discriminations will come. They'll impose restrictions on marriage and divorce, and finally will force us to stay at home. As nurses, we cannot wear too much clothing. Our clothes must be comfortable. We cannot work properly with that hijab and the kind of dress code they're asking us. It prevents us from serving our patients in the best possible way.
مرغ سحر ناله سر کن داغ مرا تازه تر کن زاه شرر بار این قفس را برشکن آذیر روز بر کن بلبل پربسته ز کنج قفس درآ نغمه آزادی نوع بشر سرا و از نفسی عرصه این خاک تو درا پر شرر کن ظلم ظالم جور صیاد آشیانم داده برباد ای خدا ای فلک ای طبیعت شام تاریک ما رو سحر کن نوبهار است گل به بار است ابر چشمم ژاله بار است این قفس چون دلم تنگ و تار است شعله فکن در قفس آه آتشین هجران مختصر کن.
Thank you, Ponthea June. Do I have the mic back? You probably took on one of the most difficult Persian songs there is out there. So kudos to you to perform this so beautifully. Bravo, bravo, Ponthea June. So at this time, we wanted to quickly take a moment and highlight some of the ways WIN and ICWIN have been making a difference and what the aim is to do next. So first, we would like to give an update about Marilyn Fowler, founder of Women International Network, or WIN. As some of you may know, Marilyn sadly had a stroke a year ago. The attack impacted her speech and her motor skills on the right side of her body. So, those of you who know her personally have relayed to me is that she's a ball of fire and is making some great progress, but she's surely missed with us here today. So, thank you for being the leader that you are, and we miss you here. It is due to her foresight and inclusive nature that WIN was established. WIN's mission is to assure that all women and girls' voices are heard in public forum for full participation in their governments and economics. WIN maintains a consultative status with United Nations. Mission and vision of WIN and ICWIN in summary are listed in the program book that you can review. But in short, the vision is advocacy for gender equality, advocate and partner at city, county, and state level for adoption of CEDAW, be bold for change, educate, and unite against all forms of violence. Collaboration. Create a dynamic platform to express a collective voice and unite for diversity. How relevant are all these topics in today's world? So it's so crucial for all of us to support and give and do whatever we can in our power. On the screen, you can see the 2-year summary of activities that ICWIN has organized. ICWIN is 100% volunteer-based and funded by your generous donations. 2017's focus was building intercultural connection, collaboration with other organizations and individuals. In 2018, in line with ICWIN's slogan, the focus was encouraging individuals to be bold for change and to embrace diversity. 2018 also is an exciting program, was introduced in 2018, leveraging on the UN consultative status of WIN. ICWIN started the program of sponsored UN delegation. The program is designed to allow 2 members of the Iranian American community to join WIN's coalition of delegates to UN's Commission on Status of Women, CSW, and events around it that take place in New York City every year. This unique opportunity has been possible by generous donations of the community to help the birthday wish of one of the members of the steering committee come true, our own Shadi June. The program will not only cover the lodging and travel expenses of these individuals, our member delegates will give them valuable mentoring information, guided tour of UN, and introduce them to the network of UN delegates. With us today are the 2019 sponsored delegates, 2 bright students that have honored their civic duties and participated in the democratic process. Kimia Mohebi and Roxana Akbari. Come on up. Where are the young ladies? Please come up. We want to recognize you. Also with us today, yes, is the new ICWIN delegate to UN and the lady who will be presenting the ICWIN's message, Ms. Ruja Moshtaghi. Ruja Jun has been focused on working in refugee camps in Greece and most recently mobilized the minority vote, encouraging civic activities in local community. Please help me welcome this fierce young lady here.
Hello, everyone. I would like to start by first thanking you all for joining us today as we reflect on Iranian women's challenges and resistance, our hopes and desires, excitements and disappointments. This year marks the 40th anniversary of the Iranian Revolution and a time to review, recollect, and reimagine a future with gender equality, social justice, human dignity, and rights to be the reality for Iran. I am grateful to ICWIN, who has given me this opportunity to speak, being supportive to me and other younger newcomers to the field. ICWIN has a distinct mission for advocacy, to educate, and to work to unite against violence of all levels, and aims to work collaborating with other organizations in civil society. The road from 1979 to 2019 has been a difficult one for Iranian women. They were the major losers of the revolution, as they saw their legal status and social positions dramatically decline by the government of Iran in the name of religious revival. Women were removed from the positions as judges in an attempt to reassert the clergy's success. All the fragile rights that the women had under the previous regime were repealed and the family protection laws were annulled. Temporary marriage, which had been outlawed, although it continued to be practiced among some of the more traditional social groups, was now not only legal, but openly encouraged. The legal age of maturity was lowered to 9 for girls and 14 for boys. This was interpreted to many to mean that girls could now be married at age 9. This is also important to note that it's also the legal age at which they're punished for any criminal offenses. While the Iranian constitution claims to guarantee equality for both genders under Sharia, which is the Islamic penal code, the value of a woman's worth is only half that of a man's. That is, diya, which is blood money that is paid for like murder or bodily injuries, for a female victim would be half that of a male victim. Or a woman's testimony in court is given half the weight of a man's. The same view towards women is rooted in the government's civil code and family law, which is based also on Sharia and has provided women with even lower inheritance. Similarly, it gives for greater rights in marriage and divorce to men. Most notably, only a man can contract more than one marriage at a time, and only men are unilaterally and unconditionally have divorce rights. Well, a woman can terminate the marriage only if the husband is in agreement, and in some specific cases, if a judge permits it. Well, the dominant discourse and gender politics of the regime during the last 4 decades has been to limit the presence of women in public spaces in the name of safeguarding family and emphasizing the traditional role of women. It should be mentioned that divorce rates in Iran is soaring. And from every 5 marriages, 1 is ending in divorce. White marriage is increasing, and many young Iranian couples are opting to live together without getting married. And that represents a 180 turn in a country that enforces strict Sharia law. The younger generations of Iranian youth have discovered and recognized their identities on different levels, personally as well as in relation to social norms. Younger Iranian women have reclaimed and realized their sexuality and dare to make choices for themselves. The idea of a white marriage, as I mentioned previously, is cohabitation of consenting adults who choose to live with and love a partner without conforming to societal norms. challenging traditions, redefining, and reshaping gender roles and family structures. The challenges of women with the legal system is not limited to penal code and family law. Many women are arrested and convicted of exercising their fundamental rights of freedom of expression, working to bring about positive change on issues of concern to all Iranian. One of the challenges of Iranian women, as in many other countries, including the United States to some extent, is violence against women in public and private spheres. Iranian women not only experience violence at home, but in society, and the violence perpetuated by the state. Narges Mohammadi, a mother of two and a human rights defender, is currently in Evin prison. She posted this short message from Evin prison. On the 40th anniversary of the victory of the Iranian People's Revolution to achieve democracy, freedom, and justice, it is necessary for the future ahead of us to review the government's records. The great strides the women's movement had made over the last 40 years and urged people to scrutinize the Iranian regime's repressive role in holding back women in legal, social, economic, and cultural areas. In her message, she references 25 female prisoners of conscience in just one of the many prisons in the Islamic Republic, the women's ward at Evin prison. She points out that at least 15 of these prisoners qualify for pardon, and many of them who have been detained for a long time have been denied leaves of absence or visits. Most recently, on March 4th, Amnesty International statement indicates that after 2 trials, Nasrin Sotoudeh, a human and women's rights lawyer in Iran, was sentenced to 34 years in prison, as well as 148 lashes. Her charges include alleged threats to Iran's government and encouraging corruption and prostitution, suggesting her charges might be connected to her defense of women's protesting the mandatory hijab. Iran also is not meeting its obligations for equal treatment of both genders required by international human rights instruments, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Iran and the US also are among the 4 countries of the world that have not ratified the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. Of course, women's human rights violations do not solely originate from deficiencies in laws, but also from social customs and traditions that historically retained the patriarchal society system and power structures. However, it is the state's responsibility to protect women's human rights and make every effort through education, media, and other mediums to stop abusive and violent traditions and plan to replace traditional discriminatory patterns with gender equality norms, free from domination and violence. In terms of education, it is important to point out that in 1975, just 4 years before the revolution, fewer than 30% of Iranian women were literate. In 2015, that number was over 80%, nearly the same as the male literacy rate. In 1977, the country had 16 universities with 154,000 undergraduate students. Today, Iran has 51 state universities and potentially as many as 354 private higher education institutions, increasing the number of students enrolled from 1.3 million in 1999 to 4.7 million in 2014. It is estimated that women make up between 55 to 60% of higher education. Well, the growth of number of women in higher education, particularly in the West and South Asia, is an indication of younger women striving to improve their social status and financial independence. In Iran and some other Muslim majority societies, attending higher education is a socially acceptable reason to have presence in the public sphere. Yet such glowing statistics do not cover up the complexities of the educational landscape in contemporary Iran. Even as vast numbers of women enter into the educational market, the data says little about their motivations or studying or the actual outcomes of their educational attainments. High levels of education in Iran do not guarantee a job. And with the country's experiencing record high levels of unemployment, which is estimated about 40% of the graduate failing to find a position about graduation. This is especially the case for young women, where fading but still persisting cultural norms about a woman's role being in the household continues to provide an additional obstacle towards active participation in the workplace. It should be noted that the rate of unemployed higher educated Iranian women is double the rate of men, and Iran perhaps has one of the biggest gaps between the number of educated women and the rate of unemployment amongst them. Younger women and girls in Iran have started to play an active role in any public arena they're able to be involved in. It is only normal for the young Iranians to be interested in the arts. However, as an aftermath of the Iranian Revolution, women singers and performers have been deemed unfit to perform in public and for non-female audiences. Although women were able to perform in public prior to the revolution, this was not necessarily accepted by cultural norms as appropriate behavior. And many performers might have been called loose women by common community standards. After the revolution, women and girls have worked hard to include themselves in unique and creative ways, working with limitations imposed on them by the government and tradition, patriarchy, and regressive gender roles. Since the revolution, we have seen an incline in the cultural acceptance of women artists as serious performers. A quick look over performing arts provides beautiful examples of women working to speak and successfully present themselves as challengers to the patriarchal view of arts, including dance and vocal performances. The limitations placed based on gender and substance has ignited interest and creativity in ways unseen by many working in some free environments. Despite all obstacles, Iranian women have always worked to carve their own space and speak with their own voices. Iranian women have never been a passive bystander. Despite all changes and discriminations, they have learned that by accommodating the system while protesting against the system, they can resist and accommodate their goals. The new generation of Iranian girls and women are actively involved in a system of non-violence protests. Where they are excluded, they come up with other ways to have their voices heard. This is most prevalent in the arts and the struggles of censorship and gender discrepancies. It is critical to realize resistance has many shapes. It is not to negate the existence or the necessity of direct action resistance that is seen in many cases across communities. At its core, it is important to understand that the government, by its paradoxical gender policies and gender engineering, has tried to show the system of governance in Iran as moderate and equitable based on Sharia law. Iranian women who bore the brunt of these policies neither accepted nor remained silent in response to these efforts. Movements such as 1 Million Signature Campaign, Mothers of Lale Park, Stop Stoning Forever, Open Stadiums, White Wednesdays, and many more have been organized by women inside Iran and in the diaspora and have received international recognition. The Iranian people continue to be the subject of discriminatory policies in Iran and here in the US. The US-Iran relationship has never been easy. Most recently, the decision to roll back the sanctions and the ban on people in 5 Muslim-majority societies, including Iran. These discriminatory policies have impacted the daily lives of Iranian people and have created hardship inside Iran, added to ongoing labor disputes and economic hardships in the daily lives of the working people. The continuous threats to war has also created insecurities about the safety of our loved ones inside Iran. Over the years, Iranian women inside Iran in the diaspora have faced many challenges. They collectively have resisted and kept moving forward. However, oftentimes a sustainable resistance and a conscious and organized gender equality movement in collaboration with other social movements is essential to a winning strategy. Movement building comes slowly but surely, and what is necessary is our support and help, connecting, listening, and providing support as requested by activists on the ground inside Iran. After all, social advocacy is a fluid environment. Who better to recognize needs than those dealing with issues as they arise? Women inside Iran have been at the forefront of challenging the discriminatory laws and human rights violations in Iran. During the last 4 decades, despite all gender engineering practices in education, employment, social protections, and public services, they keep moving forward. They are today braver than any time in the last 4 decades. They are at the forefront of social movements demanding their social, economic, and political rights, holding the people in the position of power accountable. In conclusion, it is important to remember that Iranian women's movement and campaigners inside Iran not only have made strides, but they have also paved the way for the next generation to follow and learn from the role models who inspired them and have a shared history of struggle. The fruits of the resistance of the previous generation of women activists in Iran can be seen today in bravery and persistence of the younger generation who were born and raised in Iran. They are brave, bright, fearless, persistent, and demand the rights from a position of power and holding the government accountable. The younger Iranian women know they are the key influencers in the future of Iran. They do not adhere to the patriarchal power structures or accept the discrimination imposed by the people in the position of power. Most importantly, they do this with conviction and awareness. To make lasting change, we need organized movements. It is time to move forward with a clear view, forward-looking strategies, and reimagine a future with dignity and right for all. To realize that every voice matters and needs a space to be heard. This does not come easy, and it is democracy in action. But we are on the road to success. Iranian women and girls are moving forward to build the world they want to live in. In diaspora, we shall move beyond our differences, build coalitions, and collaborate with other social movements for gender equality and peace. The good of the collective should be our focus in organizing movements and in building a future we like to be a part of. I'd like to thank you for listening and being a part of this collective effort. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that insight. As you can see and hear, it's so important for each of us to be a player in contributing and in being part of these movements that so many others have started without much resources. You can also, again, stay involved by becoming a member. You can volunteer and share your ideas. build network, get informed, and inspire. You can also follow ICWIN on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and also more information is available on the website. So I encourage you to please give and support these great individuals who are putting their time and effort to bring us together and do all the wonderful things that are doing. We also want to acknowledge and thank our co-sponsors today. Your participation is priceless and much appreciated. Thank you all so much. So important to have women-owned businesses supporting women initiatives. So thank you all. I wish I had more time to read, but reading is so important, not on a mobile device, actual book. So today with us, we have several authors presenting their work. Some of you have met before, but they have brought their latest books. So be sure to visit the authors table and check them out. We have with us Miss Rosemary Cohen, Masti Lashkari, Sheida Mohammadi, Nushi Mutaaref, Mahdouh Sanati, and Faride Shabanfar. Please give them a round of applause and be sure to check out their latest and greatest thoughts written in their books. And of course, no celebration is complete. Just like we began with music, we want to conclude with music. And one of the most talented, most insightful, deep artist that I've had a privilege of knowing virtually for the longest time and followed her work is here with us with her team who are going to perform for us. Do we have the ensemble ready? All right, so with that, I want to turn it over to the talented artist featuring Shadi Amini, who will be taking us through a musical journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ICWIN, for inviting us to this wonderful event. تشکر میخوام بکنم از زنانی که میدونم با زحمت خیلی زیاد در روزهای این چنینی مراسمی رو ترتیب میدن که ما رو آگاهتر بکنه نسبت به مبارزات زنان، حقوق زنان. امیدوارم روزی برسه که هیچ کدوم از ما لازم نباشه برای حقوق اولیه‌مون بجنگیم، مبارزه کنیم، خواسته هامون و چیزهایی که بهش اعتقاد داریم هزینه بدیم و مبارزه کنیم. من امروز فکر میکنم 4 تا از کارامو براتون اجرا میکنم، 4 تا یا 5 تا ببینیم با توجه به وقتمون. و اولین آهنگ که میخوام براتون اجرا کنم آهنگی است به اسم تخت خواب که تقریبا 5 سال پیش اجراش کردم. 6 سال زمان خیلی زود میگذره. 6 سال پیش، 6 سال و نیم پیش اجراش کردم. ترانه‌ای که برای جوانی خودم یا نوجوانی خودم نوشتم. امیدوارم که دوستش داشته باشید.
من بی سلاح و قد تو توی پرده ها دنبال همسری، من بی سلاح و تو عده لشکری. از درد مردنم دست خودم نبود، من بی سلاح و تو قده لشکری. من غرق خاکم و تو غرق خون من، با بی تفاوتی هر روز بهتری. بیزارم از حجاب، از من تو رو سری، تو اون بسیجیه با من برادری. من حرص میخورم، من بغض میکشم، از این عدالت و از این برابری. مرسی، خیلی ممنونم، سپاسگزارم. آهنگ بعدی که اجرا میکنیم اسمش هست روسری با شعری از سید مهدی موسوی، شاعر در تبعید، و موزیکی که دوستان عزیزم در داخل ایران ساختن برای من و تنظیمی که توسط دوستان خوبم گارنی و آرگین. میشنوید. مرسی. نشست، درختان تبر شدن و بار میبرند کماکان الاغ‌ها. لعنت به ساده لوحیت و آن دل خرد، بهتت زده شکسته در این شهر باورد، به دست دوست یا که به آغوش امن عشق این بار اعتماد کنی. خاک بر سرت از یاد میبرم، مرا دیگری کنم، از دستمال گریه من روسری کنم. در کل شهر خال زنک ها نشستم درباره زنی که منم داوری کنم. چشم تو را که اسم شبش سر کار مزدها، از بوی دستهای تو در جیب دزدها، از انحراف من وسط مستقیم ها، از عشق جاودانه ما پشت سیم ها، از هر که مثل تو از ماه آمده است، از این همه بپرس چرا حال من بد است. از یاد میبرم مرا دیگری کنم، از دستمال گریه من روسری کنم. در کل شهر خال زنک ها نشستم، در باره زنی که منم داوری کنم. چشم تو را که اسم شبش آفتاب بود، با ابرهای غمزده خاکستری کنم. ما درد میکشیم که جوجه فسیل ها در وصف عشق و زیر کمر شاعری کنند. ممنونم. در کل شهر خال زنک ها نشستند، درباره زنی که منم داوری کنند. فکر میکنم اون روزی که ما یاد بگیریم، به خودمون یاد بدیم که دیگران رو قضاوت نکنیم و به قول خودمون اینوریا جاج نکنیم، روزی هست که فکر کنم بیشتر از نصف راه رفتیم. خودمون، ما زنها هم. موزیک بعدی که براتون اجرا میکنیم اسمش هست سلفی. تجارت اتم یا بمب ساعت چشم تو رو صورت کبود، رو هر کی مثل ما که اصلا حساب نبود. بی درد و دغدغه عمرت رو بگذرون، راستی چقدر شده قیمت جونمون. سلفی بگیر و باز به زندگی بخند، دنبال مد برو مثل یه گوسفند، فالوورات رو باز سرگرم خنده کن، اخبار بد نگو، گرگو برنده کن. با پول من هنوز فکر تجارتی، تجارت اتم یا بمب ساعتی، بفروش روح تو به آیه های پاک، ببند چشم تو به خون روی خاک. فرقی نمیکنه شلیک یا کلیک، بیرون گود باش با ژست های شیک، بی درد و بی صدا حد وسط بمون. اخبار زرد و از میون خون بخون، سلفی بگیر و باز. ممنونم. تهران و بوی ذرت مکزیک یا غروب، تهران و چند خاطره افتضاح و خوب، تهران و خط متروی تجریش تا جنوب. این شهر خسته را به شما می سپارمش، تهران سکته کرده از هر دو پا فلج، تهران وصل پینه شده با خطوط کج، تهران تا همیشه ترافیک تا کرج. این شهر خسته را به شما می سپارمش. من روزهای خونی و پر التهاب را، من سطرهای سوخته انقلاب را، بر سنگ فرش کهنه بساط کتاب را بوسیدم و برای شما جا گذاشتم. من خشخش رفتگر از صبح زود را، سیگار بهمنان ریه غرق دود را، من هر که عاشقم شده بود و نبود را بوسیدم و برای شما جا گذاشتم، جا گذاشتم. کابوس‌های هر شب از درد مشترک یک روز میرسد که فراموش میشوند. تنهایم نشسته میان اتاق‌ها، بر 28 سالگیم جای داغ‌ها. گریه نمی کنم همه اتفاق‌ها، یک روز میرسد که فراموش میشود. من روزهای خونی و پر التهاب را، من سطرهای سوخته انقلاب را، بر سنگ فرش کهنه بساط کتاب را بوسیدم و برای شما جا گذاشتم. من خشخش رفتگر از صبح زود را، سیگار بهمن و ریه غرق دود را، من هر که عاشقم شده بود و نبود را بوسیدم و برای شما جا گذاشتم، جا گذاشتم. مرسی، خیلی ممنون. آخرین آهنگی که براتون اجرا میکنم اسمش هست آواز زن، که تقدیمش میکنم به همه دختران و زنانی که به همه زنانی که در داخل ایران از حق آواز محروم هستند و نمیتونن، اگر در این زمینه دوست دارن که فعالیت کنن به صورت حرفه‌ای، این حق ازشون دریغ شده. این ترانه رو تقدیم میکنم به همه آن زنان و مادران خودمون و لالایی هایی که از زبان مادرانمون شنیدیم و نسل به نسل به هم انتقال دادیم. خط میکشیدم روی احساسم، از عشق لالایی برات خوندم، گفتی صدای عشق ممنوعه، من اما پای این جنون موندم، دنیای من زندون شد از فکرت، از دلخوشی هم چیزی یادم نیست، تو قد کشیدی مثل یک باور، صدام مخالف بود گفتی نیست، آواز مادر مثل بارون بود، من توی صداش دریا رو فهمیدم، زمزمه کردم آرزوهامو، وایسادم از هیچی نترسیدم، میشد بخونم از شب و رویا، میشد بخونم بی ترسش یعنی زن، کجای دنیا این همه عشق و هرچی عقب رفتم برات کم بود تا پس کشیدن راه حلش نیست وقتی میدونم خوندن حقم بود اونی که دستاش گرمی خونه است بغزش عمره از تو پنهونه تا آخر دنیا بگو ممنون مادر بازم با عشق میخونه آواز مادر مثل بارون بود من توی صداش دریا رو فهمیدم زمزمه کردم آرزوهامو وایسادم از هیچی نترسیدم میشد بخونم از شب و رویاها میشد بخونم بی ترسش یعنی زن کجای دنیا این همه عشقا بی هیچ جرمی دور میریزن. مرسی، خیلی ممنونم. بازم تشکر میکنم از حضورتون. خوشحالم که در خدمتتون بودم. به امید دنیایی سرشار از آزادی، برابری و تشکر میکنم از ICWIN مجدداً و خانم الهه امانی عزیزم و سوداوه عزیز و تشکر میکنم از بیتا میلانیان عزیزم. خیلی ممنونم که در کنار شما عزیزان بودم.
Thank you so much. That was truly touching and beautiful, especially was performed from the heart. Thank you so much, Shadi Jun. So I got a few important dates to share with you before we say goodbye. What's next on ICWIN's agenda are delegates of WIN to attend UN next week. It's happening next week. So these lovely young ladies here you saw here, they'll be there next week. Community outreach in spring. And Equality Day, Sunday, August 25th. So please put that on your calendars. Don't forget to follow ICWIN on social media. I do. And I make sure if you post today's program, make sure you tag so we can share it with our network as well. A few other upcoming events. March 12th is OC Board Supervisor Special Edition, replacing Todd Spitzer's position. That is now the new District Attorney of Orange County. Ballots were mailed to registered voters, so please be sure if you're in the following areas or counties, Irvine cities, Irvine, Anaheim, Orange, Tustin, Villa Park, and Yorba Linda to participate. Former Congresswoman Loreto Sanchez is only Democrat on the ballot. So, hint, hint. Thank you again for coming out and drive home safe. Thank you.
نشست درختان تبر شدن و بار میبرند کماکان الاغ‌ها. لعنت به ساده لوحیت و آن دل خرد، بهتت زده شکسته در این شهر باورد به دست دوست یا که به آغوش امن عشق این بار اعتماد کنی. در